Yori froze, thinking, wait, who is this girl? Suddenly, the girl called out loudly, are you listening? And Yori thought, did she just call my name? Could it be from that time? His face tightened with tension as he wondered why she was here. From behind, Hookah shouted Yori's name, demanding to know who the girl was and what she was doing. Yori pleaded helplessly, admitting that he didn't understand either. The girl leaned in close, hugging him again. Blushing and smiling, she exclaimed that it had been a long time since they last met. Hyori, bewildered, thought, what the heck, while noticing she even smelled nice. Yuka, stunned, blurted out in disbelief before rushing over to separate them, demanding to know what the girl thought she was doing. The girl responded innocently, asking if it wasn't allowed. Hookah, furious, shouted that of course it wasn't, reminding her they were in the classroom. Blushing, Hookah scolded her further, saying that doing whatever she pleased in front of everyone was unacceptable. The girl smiled apologetically, explaining she had just gotten carried away since it had been so long. Hookah angrily demanded to know who she was, accusing Yori of looking far too happy clinging to her. Yori responded nervously that even if Hookah asked, he didn't know either. The girl tilted her head, confused, and asked if Yori didn't remember what had happened yesterday. His face tightened in panic. If that got out, he'd be doomed. Hookah pressed harder, questioning exactly what he had done, and suggesting he might have been hitting on girls. Yori denied it, insisting he wasn't the type to do something like that. Reluctantly, Hookah admitted he was probably right but avoided eye contact, suggesting they ask the girl directly. The girl then introduced herself as Amaya, a transfer student with a charming appearance. Hookah immediately demanded to know why a transfer student like her had business with Yori, angrily describing him as a lazy guy who never changed, no matter how many times she lectured him. Yori muttered at being called lazy, but Amaya defended him, saying that if Hookah kept criticizing him, it would just be pitiful for Yori. Confused, Hookah asked why Amaya was the one feeling sorry for him. Amaya replied simply that it was because she knew Yori. Hookah gave him a death stare. Yori insisted that Amaya must be mistaking him for someone else. It was basically their first meeting. Amaya, however, shouted like a child, insisting that his face was obviously Yori's and his name matched too. Yori, still confused, realized he didn't fully understand what she was saying, but he knew this was bad. At that rate, his peaceful life was in danger of being ruined again. In a sudden move, he grabbed Amaya's hand. Hookah blushed in shock. Isa's expression shifted to surprise and delight, while Yori, holding Amaya's hand, ran off, urging her to follow immediately. Amaya laughed happily, saying how fun it was, while Yori shouted that she was far too relaxed and insisted they just run and hide for now. On the stairs, Yori panted from the exertion, and Amaya looked at him, amazed. Hyori turned to her, demanding what kind of grudge she had against him. Amaya frowned in confusion and asked why he would think that. Yori explained that since the transfer student everyone had been talking about had spoken to him, he had suddenly ended up in spotlight. Amaya asked if that wasn't a good thing, but Yori immediately rejected the idea. With a serious expression, Amaya asked if he really didn't remember. Yori asked what she meant, and she explained that they had often played together as children because their fathers had been close. Yori asked if she meant back then, and Amaya confirmed, saying it had been in early elementary school. Yori thought hard, then suddenly gasped with realization. Wait, Amaya, are you Yukon? Amaya blushed and smiled happily, confirming he was right. Yori froze, exclaiming that she hadn't been a boy. Amaya asked incredulously whether he had really thought she had been. Yori insisted, recalling that back then she had short hair and always wore a t-shirt and shorts. Amaya laughed, her cute, blushing smile teasing him, saying that was far too big a leap. Yori complained that she laughed too much, but Amaya teased him further, saying that his childhood friend had returned as a girl. Wasn't that a good thing? Yori thought her logic strange, but Amaya cheerfully said he was still the same kind, funny Yori. Yori objected, recalling that some people said he hadn't even tried to change. Amaya insisted that now they had reunited in high school, they should spend time together. Yori flatly refused. Amaya whimpered, asking if it was because Hookah was his girlfriend. Yori quickly denied it, saying that Hookah would be the one to turn him down. He added that since Amaya was beautiful, being seen together would make people jealous. Amaya blushed, smiling embarrassed at being called beautiful, but Yori told her to stop reacting like that. Amaya reassured him, saying he didn't need to worry. She wanted to be with him. Yori thought that even though he didn't want to raise strange hopes, it was difficult. He told her that, for both their sakes, they should keep some distance, especially since the girls around them were probably watching. Amaya pouted, blushing, and asked if that was really okay, looking confused. Then, with a mischievous grin, she reminded him about the time he had groped her chest, asking if she should tell everyone at school about it. She wondered aloud what would happen to his peaceful life, if she did. Yori shouted that yesterday she had told him not to worry about it, but Amaya replied with a mischievous smile that the only thing she remembered was him groping her chest, and asked what he planned to do about it. Yori finally admitted defeat, and Amaya's face lit up with delight, her smile wide and happy. Yori then explained that they just needed to be friends again, but added one condition regarding the incident: they shouldn't talk about it, or else he might end up beaten to a pulp. Amaya cheerfully agreed, and the two of them walked back toward their class together. Yori thought to himself, if this kept up, I'd be socially erased. Dangerous stuff. Well, somehow my life will probably return to peace. Hookah, growing angry, demanded that Yori explain everything properly. Yori replied that the girl was simply the transfer student from a next class. Hookah immediately pointed out that he knew that wasn't what she meant. She pressed further, insisting she was asking about the things she knew regarding Yori, and how the two of them seemed far too close. Yori thought there was no way he could explain that, and instead muttered that it was kind of normal. Frustrated, Hookah said that made no sense and began to suspect that the girl might be an ex-girlfriend. Yori denied it outright, insisting that was impossible. Hookah concluded that she had guessed correctly because there was no way she would know if that were true. Yori, however, wondered if her words were some kind of high-level taunt, implying he probably didn't even have one. He clarified that the girl was just a childhood friend, and that there was nothing shady at all. Hookah, shocked, refused to believe him. She shouted that she had never heard of such a girl, and insisted that he was supposed to have only one childhood friend, her. Yori explained that he hadn't mentioned it because he and the girl had been close before Hookah moved there. Hookah argued that for a childhood friend, the girl was acting far too close, especially since she had her arm linked with his while he was smiling. Yori blushed, denying that he was acting lovey-dovey, and insisting he was just behaving normally. Hookah, however, claimed that was unbelievable, accusing him of being shameless. She complained that if the girl was cute, he seemed fine with anyone, and that made him so unrestrained. It was honestly a turnoff. Yori, flustered, said that even if Hookah told him all that, he wondered if it meant she actually wanted to flirt with him. Hookah, blushing and flustered, immediately told him to cut out, even as a joke. She insisted that she would never flirt with him, and said there were proper steps to these things, so it could not happen all of a sudden. Still, she admitted that sometimes relationships start out like that, though she was embarrassed to say so. Yori questioned why it would be him, saying it should be Haru and Hookah instead. At that, Hookah grew frustrated, shouted that he was so annoying, and told him she already understood before angrily calling him an idiot. Later, Hookah smiled sarcastically and said it was great, pointing out that it seemed like Yori had found someone in real life off-screen who doted on him. Yori responded uncertainly, saying he was not so sure about that. He admitted that it was not bad being adored and that they were not cold to him, but also added that they were not really a good match. Hookah became flustered and demanded to know why he was making it sound like she was the one being cold. Yori silently thought to himself, wondering what she was even saying. He then commented aloud that even Hookah cracked jokes sometimes. Hookah denied it quickly, but then Amaya suddenly called out to Yori from behind. Hookah noticed her and muttered almost to herself that it was a case of speaking of the devil. Amaya called out cheerfully again, and Hookah, trying to cover, remarked that Yori was the type of person who would not go even if he were invited openly. Yori admitted that was how it was supposed to be. But then he picked up his bag and told them he was going to head out for a bit, saying he would see them tomorrow. Yori walked off with Amaya. Hookah stared after them in confusion. She muttered to herself that she did not get it at all. Clenching her fist, she struck the bench in frustration, asking aloud what that was even supposed to mean.